Hi, everyone. Welcome to our webinar today. Glad you could join us. Today's topic is getting metrics ready with your existing data stack. And joining me are quite a few different experts and panelists. We have Roxy from DBT Labs, Brian from Cube, Adam from DataTier, and Ching joining me as well from Clipfolio. My name is David Meny. I'm the Chief Product Officer here at Clipfolio, and I'll be the moderator for today's session. Just as a point of logistics, there should be a Q&A panel in the Zoom, and feel free to add any questions you have or that come up through the session. We'll do our best to answer them throughout, and if there are more at the end that we haven't addressed, we'll go through them together. So the goal of today's webinar, we're going to talk about metrics as an analytics strategy and the benefits of using metrics. We'll also get you started quickly with an approach to doing this based on what we've seen in the industry and what a lot of our customers and prospects are asking for, and then how PowerMetrics is well suited to provide a hybrid integration approach to dealing with metrics. And then finally, we'll show you some brand new integrations that we just actually launched last week with some leading semantic layers, including Cube and DBT Labs semantic layer, as well as 6 new data warehouse connectors. And I'll also show a little bit around our data feedback lane as well. So we'll get to the live demo once we get through a little bit of the context. So I thought a really good place to start with is, what is a metric? And to us, a metric's always been a first-class object in our system. It's really a BI artifact that captures the data and the meaning around a single business concept. And so you've probably heard of things like revenue and MRR, logo churn. There's literally thousands of metrics out there. But as long as there's a clear, opinionated, and structured definition of what that is as a calculation, its meaning, its metadata, and how it should be used, that's what we refer to as a metric. Typically, metrics have a name, a description. They often have or should have a primary date value that can be used, specifically because metrics are generally around time series data. We also have historical data associated with the metric and various dimensions that can be used to segment that metric in addition to the core calculation. Really, we want metrics to be based on clean, transformed data, which is one of the reasons we're talking today about semantic layers and data warehouses. And we also want these assets to be easily managed by the data team, so they can be consumed by any user, and including business users or data analysts, as their single source of truth. But we definitely want that governance from the data team. So when we talk about the power of a metric, it's really bridging data teams and business users. So data teams obviously want to deliver all of the trusted data they've spent the time creating in their analytics stack, cleaning it, making sure it's trusted and can be used. They want that to be delivered to their business user, but they want to manage and control those definitions and the data powering it. And of course, they want this increasingly to be both accessible from an analytics tool like PowerMetrics, for example, or an enterprise BI tool like Tableau or Power BI. But then they also want to consume it in a headless context as well for things like custom data apps. Business users, obviously, the biggest problem is what data can be trusted. And that's really where metrics come in. They can be reliable, they can be validated, they can even be certified. So it's very easy for the business user to know what data they can trust. Of course, data teams really want their business users to be self-service, to be able to explore the data, analyze it, use it in dashboards, and discover new insights without having to burden them every time they need, some new calculation. And so really the combination of those metrics in these different formats like dashboards and custom data apps, that's where it becomes really, really compelling for business users. So when we talk about PowerMetrics, we're really trying to be that bridge between the data teams that are powering the metrics and creating the metrics from data based in their data warehouses and semantic layers, all the way through to the business user who's consuming the metrics in the catalog and building and visualizing the analytics and dashboards from that. We know that traditional BI tools, a lot of them shown here, are designed really for data specialists, for data scientists, for analysts. They should be able to use the tools of their choice while still being able to access the metrics in the catalog. But it's business users that really have no success in those tools. They need something very straightforward, easy, approachable, that they can see what metrics are available and consume them any way they want. So that's really the goal of PowerMetrics, is to create that bridge. So at this point, what I wanted to do is I wanted to invite Adam, who's the CEO of Data Tier, on the call with us, and just to ask a question, as one of our lead enablement partners, sort of what you're seeing in the market and what you think the opportunity is around metrics.
Yeah, thanks, David. And I'm really excited to be working with Clipfolio because I think a focus on metrics is pretty unique. That's always been a focus for us, and I think this is important because as we talk with clients, everybody understands the potential of data, what's possible with the data if they could just harness it, but it's too complicated, it's too expensive, it takes too long. Data lives in a lot of different places. There's a lot of technical and engineering work, but there's also business complexity behind those. And just getting all that organized and making progress to achieve what they're trying to achieve is difficult. What I like about a focus on metrics is there a bridge between all the technical and data work and the business goals and the business strategy around data. Without that, it's hard to communicate and it's hard to plan and it's hard to make progress. But metrics offer part of a framework, a way to communicate what the business needs, and they're understandable by the business, just the same as they're understandable by a data team. So they're a bridge between these two groups of organization that really want to achieve the same thing, but they're doing very different work and handling very different complexity. So for me, they provide focus, they simplify the efforts. If everybody can talk about what are the metrics we're focused on, then the more technical oriented folks can handle the tasks they need to work on. The business folks can handle on what they're trying to achieve once they have those metrics in place. I think this has been a missing piece for a long time.
Yeah, I really appreciate that summary. I mean, I think that really speaks to the opportunity. And so how do you advise the clients and the companies you work with to get started with metrics in their business?
Well, the good thing is it's not like a rip and replace. Like for our clients, sometimes they come to us and it's total greenfield. It's a brand new effort. And so starting with a metrics oriented framework is natural. Some come to us and they already have something in place, and sometimes it's great and sometimes it's a mess. But the nice thing is you can layer on metrics onto whatever you have in your technical stack. Um, and you don't have to, like, it's not a technology necessarily. I know you guys bring a product that helps facilitate that, but just thinking in terms of metrics and using them as a framework, you don't have to rip and replace. And so going through the exercise, whether it's a brand new effort or whether there's an existing data analytics platform in place, and just really starting to talk about what are the metrics that we're after, what's the business definition, even just giving them a name and giving them a business definition, putting a little bit of rigor around that goes a long way. Even simple examples like show me revenue by customer. Well, have you defined what customer is? Most businesses, each department might define that a little bit differently. Have you defined what revenue is? Does that include discounts or not? Does it include returns or not? So just putting a little bit of rigor in saying we're going to have a name for each of our metrics. We're going to have a business definition for each of our metrics, and we're going to agree on the technical calculation. Those three elements on their own give a lot of information to all parties that are involved in the metrics. So when you're starting, for me, it's just keep it really simple and just make a list and start talking about those key elements of what is a metric in our business.
Yeah, I really like that, Adam. And I think as one of our lead enablement partners, that you've pretty much seen it all. And if you're saying start simple with the list, I agree, get organized, and then we can worry about the data sources and sort of moving up that analytics stack of maturity towards where we really want to go. But we can get started today. And I think that's really exciting. Thank you. All right. So what I'm going to do at this point, I think, Catherine, we're going to run a quick poll just to see what are some of the metric platforms and different data sources that you all are using. think we'll just take another couple seconds to let people put their answers in, and then we can share the results with you. Not sure if we're seeing the results anywhere. I can't see them. Oh, there they are. Great. So it looks like oh, quite a few in the audience are familiar with PowerMetrics. Some haven't tried it, some want to try it. Very nice. Okay. Good data. Thank you. All right. So moving forward, I'm going to hand things over to Ching, my VP of Engineering, to go through a little bit more technical detail on the solution. Ching.
All right, thanks, David. And thanks, David, for setting up the stage and context for the metric-centric approach we are taking here at Clipfolio, and Adam for re-emphasize on the importance of doing that. So at Clipfolio, we have built a PowerMetrics platform, which is really built from ground up to foster this metric-centric approach for developing our data apps, for developing metrics. On top of that, we really centered around metric as a consumable and deployable artifact, and all of your business users and data teams can contribute towards that artifact as you are developing your data applications or dashboard or your metrics. So not only the business user can contribute from the business definition towards a metric, the data team can also contribute at the same time towards the data fulfillment towards a metric. So it fosters the collaboration early on between your data team and your business and user consumers. And because we support a wide variety of technology and connectors, we allow you to really harness the value from your data really early on. Whether your data is from a spreadsheet you're still experimenting with, or you have deployed from a REST API that you can access, or you are matured into a data warehouse solutions you already have and be able to create metrics directly from your data warehouse, or moving one level up to create your metrics directly from your semantic layer where there's already semantic meaning and business kind of the data captured at those layers as well. In this case, dbt and Cube are the two technologies we support today. So through these creating metrics, cataloging your metrics in your different data stacks, consuming it and collaborating to define that between your business user and your data teams, we hope that will streamline the whole process from going to raw data to have business values at the end of the pipeline. And obviously, we will also support your data stack to evolve over time, because metrics can allow you to switch your data behind the scene and evolve it over time from a less mature data stack to a more mature data stack over time. And the next slide, we'll talk a little bit about the new group of connectors we have just released I think last week. So it's very exciting. Not only we traditionally support REST connectors, kind of GraphQL connectors, being able to upload data from your spreadsheet. We also have your traditional SQL connectors, but now we have a new set of data warehouse connectors. We really streamline the process of extracting your metric coming from those connectors to get value out of your data warehouse really quickly. You can import your data and create metrics within minutes. I'm not sure if we can demo that today, but if you guys are interested, we can set up a separate demo for that. Today we'll be mostly focusing on semantic layer, but these connectors we currently support today, including Snowflake, BigQuery, Databricks, as you can see in those logo side, but we're keeping adding more and more databases as we are moving forward, and this hopefully will also streamline the process of creating your metrics from your data warehouse as well. So that's it on my slides.
Thank you, Ching. Yeah, I think we wanted to run one more quick poll before we move forward with some of the semantic layer discussion. So yeah, what tools are part of your data stack? And of course, you can select as many as you are using or interested in using. We'll give everyone a few seconds to complete that poll. right, so we'll share the results. Wow, a good variety of people using data warehouses, at least. That's good to see. BigQuery, Snowflake, Databricks, lots of data warehouses in use. Don't see too many, oh, few DBT folks. That's awesome. And a few Cube folks. Great to see. So yeah, use across the board, which is what we kind of expected, right? Yeah, we're definitely seeing a very heterogeneous connection strategy and backplane for a lot of those data teams out there. So that's great to see. Thanks for sharing that. Okay, so at this point, we're going to transition over to talk a little bit more about these integrations in deeper detail. And to get us started, I'm going to hand it over to Roxy from DBT Labs.
Hi, all. My name is Roxy. As David mentioned, I work on the product team at DBT Labs. I focus on the semantic layer. I joined the company last year through the acquisition of Transform Data, which was a company focused on building a semantic layer in metric store, and we joined forces with DBT Labs. I'm going to talk to you a little bit today about what a semantic layer is, where it fits in the data stack, and also talk to you a little bit about DBT semantic layer specifically. So to start, what is a semantic layer? At their core, semantic layers map data to language. We've been talking throughout this webinar about bridging the data teams and the business teams. And this is really the heart of what they do, unifying the language that computers and analysts speak to the language that your end users speak. So what does this really mean? On the next slide, I have a little example, which is simple, but it sort of drives the point home of what we're talking about here. So on the right-hand side, a business user might need something like revenue by customer over time for the last month. If you are an analyst or you've been an analyst in your past life, you might not have any trouble trying to figure out how to get the answer to this question. But under the hood, there's actually a little bit more complexity. You know, what tables do I access to get this information? Where are they? How do I structure the query? Is this the right column? How should I be aggregating this data? Should I use the table revenue underscore final or revenue underscore final final? For those of you who've been analysts in a past life, you might have run into that exact situation as I have multiple times. And on the left-hand side, I have some pseudo SQL, but the point is the left-hand side isn't always accessible to the end users. And this is why we need a semantic layer. It's also not just about the number. As David mentioned, it's also about the context around the number and what it means, what it's meant in the past. One thing to note here, we're not going to dig into AI today, but the Klipfolio team has the webinar next week on that, which you should definitely join. But what I wanted to point out is computers here on the left-hand side is actually more apt and important than it was even just a few months ago due to the rise of AI fitting into these workflows. So let's talk a little bit about where the semantic layer fits in the data stack. So the concept of semantic layers has actually been around for a while, but the modern data stack has changed this a little bit. In this simplified diagram where you have raw data flowing into your data platform, some level of transformation happening to normalize the data, you may have metrics defined across all the respective tools that you use on the top layer, which we believe leads to misalignment. Maybe you're maintaining a set of static denormalized tables in your data platform. Or in the past, maybe you're using a tool that actually has a semantic layer built in, which we believe is not truly universal. Examples of this are like Looker and MicroStrategy, which you may have used or heard of. We assert the right place for this is actually where you have it on this diagram. It's a layer that sits in between your data platform and all of your consuming tools to maintain a single source of truth. Now we're going to shift to talk a little bit about DBT semantic layer specifically. So the DBT semantic layer is tied to your existing transformation workflows. Many of you who may have heard of DBT, and it started out as sort of the key transformation tool, really putting the T in ELT, or extract, load, transform. And it just really makes sense for your metrics to be tied to that layer and that source of transformation because you get the full, rich, and lineage and context from the source of your data all the way to your metrics. The DBT semantic layer treats metrics as a first-class object, and we have a pretty expressive specification allowing you to really build complex things without having to write a bunch of hairy SQL. The core of our product is a SQL generation engine that compiles optimized SQL for your platform. And it automatically handles joins and also supports caching for performance. We have some APIs you can build on top of, as well as first-class integrations, such as the one we have with Klipfolio's PowerMetrics. And just to talk a little bit about what sort of use cases you might be using the semantic layer, the dbt semantic layer for, on the next slide, there's a few things that may make sense here. The first is probably the most common one, which is building out reports and BI reports for your end users to consume. There is the case of external analytics. Maybe you're building an external application that uses a semantic layer, is powered by the semantic layer. There's self-serve, which is really similar to is the power of PowerMetrics. And there's of course AI, which is, I think, intersects with self-serve quite a bit, but we're kind of exploring what products could look like for the semantic layer in this realm. And I think Klipfolio's products actually cross-section all of these use cases. We've started out with PowerMetrics and self-serve, but there's a whole world we can continue to explore here, and really with the goal of enabling data consumers with consistent and discoverable metrics and reducing the cost of producing insights for data producers. So that's a little bit about the dbt semantic layer, and I think now I'm going to hand it over to Brian.
Hey, thanks, Roxy. Yeah, hey, everybody. My name is Brian Bickle. I'm the VP of Strategy and Alliances over here at Cube. And I have to thank Roxy for doing a lot of the heavy lifting of teaching you all about semantic layers. So I'm not going to repeat that bit, but I'll tell you a little bit more about what we do over here at Cube. Cube is a universal semantic layer. And like pretty much every semantic layer and all the different implementations, we implement many different types of database connectors, whether that's things like relational databases, cloud data warehouses, stranger things like these web scale OLAP databases like ClickHouse and high performance systems. And our goal and one of our product emphasis is really a wide range of these sources to then allow you to sort of do like the four main types of functionality that a semantic layer brings. And these are broadly things like data modeling, access control, caching, and then APIs. Again, every semantic layer implements these in some form, but in Cube specifically, we believe that a code-based data modeling experience with easy version control and good software development lifecycle practices are probably what most teams now working in the modern data stack want. And working with Cube and really most semantic layers, it's easy to ensure that you're not repeating yourself. And of course, consolidating those metrics into one consistent, understandable and governable platform is our goal. Additionally to that, we provide a robust access control platform that lets you do things like row level security or column level masking and makes multi-tenancy really easy. If you're building maybe things like customer facing or embedded analytics on top of Cube, that's very straightforward and is a common use case. We also provide a first-class caching solution. That is a proprietary bit of technology we call Cube Store that does transparent pre-aggregations and rollups and is, as we mentioned earlier, and David and Adam talked about this, mostly metrics have some kind of default time grain to them and they're typically an aggregate. So this type of thing helps with performance. And then finally, with Cube, everything leaves Cube via a set of different APIs. And those are our REST API, GraphQL, and SQL APIs. And the big idea behind Cube is the universal nature of it, allowing you to serve a lot of different use cases with the same data model to ensure consistency for all of your users. So David, if you'll go to the next slide. Yeah, and the way that we make the product available is via our commercial offering, Cube Cloud. Our idea here is that you should model once and deliver your data anywhere. And, back to, again, major themes of semantic layers, these idea of unifying data into a single source of truth with consistent metrics, while also governing, enforcing fine-grained access controls. And again, through caching technologies, optimizing and giving your users a more either cost-efficient or faster experience. And in sometimes, most cases, both benefits. So next slide. Yeah, and tying this back to something that Adam said earlier, metrics and semantic layers and the implementations, these are all really about building a bridge between complicated data stacks and data engineers and data architects and their business users by getting us all on the same page about what metrics mean and bringing consistency and driving enablement for business users. Cool. And I'll pass it back over to David.
Yeah, thanks, Brian, and thanks, Roxy, before that for providing the context, pun intended, and the power of semantic layers. As we're about to demonstrate, we have integrations with both of these technologies, as well as all of the data warehouses that most customers out there today would require. And so what we're going to do is actually show you that in a live demo. So I'm just going to switch screens here. Hopefully, Zoom will cooperate, and I'll give you guys a demo of that. All right, so what you're seeing here is a live version of Klipfolio PowerMetrics. In front of you is our metric catalog. So all metrics that are in the system from any data source will appear here. It's very easy to take a look at your metrics across any time granularity, see their values, how they're changing, a spark line around them. We treat all metrics, regardless of the data strategy you use, the same way. And so what I wanted to show you today is what we've added specifically for data warehouses. So if I go in here to this area called data warehouse services within our connection list, you can see we have these 6 data warehouses at the top. Again, they're all treated similarly. So a demo that I show you on any one of these will be fairly much the same. So if I just go into BigQuery, for example, basically the way this works is you would simply create a connection profile to your BigQuery instance. In this case, providing your project ID, your data set, what credentials you want to use, things along that nature. Once you've got a connection profile, we'll manage that for you. If you need to change it, update it, change the credentials around it, you can do that here. And then by selecting which profile to use, we then automatically pull back a list of all available tables and views in your warehouse. So if we want to take a look at a metric, for example, on the orders table, we just had, the PowerMetrics will automatically show you every measure that's possible on that table. And all you would have to do is select the measure, and we will visualize the metric for you. So this is pulling back data from this BigQuery table in real time, and it's actually constructing the visual so you can actually see what your data looks like over time. Of course, you can give this, a better name if you'd like. And when you're happy with that, you can actually save it into your metric catalog. So effectively, whether you're connecting to BigQuery or whether you're connecting to Snowflake, the experience is identical. Again, here's the metric created, all that data available. We show you it across multiple different views. You also have some filters at the top that if you want to actually look at your orders by some dimension, like in this case, we have whether or not this is for a restaurant order. So whether it's a food order or it's not a food order, you can dynamically segment your metrics as well. And again, if you go to another warehouse, like for example, Snowflake, very similar experience, connection profile for Snowflake, which is going to be slightly different, obviously, than BigQuery, but same kind of idea. We store all those credentials. Again, if you have a webhook set up, we can actually take advantage of that too to notify our layer when things change in the underlying warehouse. But again, connect to the table that you're interested in, pick the measure that you'd like for your metric, and we will visualize the data for you. You can also see that all available dimensions in that table are also available for segmentation, and the date column in that table is auto-selected. If there's multiple dates and you want to switch the date field, you can do that here as well. And when you're happy, save it, and it goes into your library. So basically, it's that easy. And then when we take this beyond the warehouse and into the semantic layers, let's take a look how that works. So if I just simply click on semantic layers here, you can see both Cube and DBT are appearing. If I start with Cube, because we just launched this last week, pretty excited about that. Again, all available cubes. in the Cube instance. And again, connection profile for Cube, also different, but fairly straightforward. Just your Cube Cloud host URL, your API key, and then we get a list of all available cubes. And again, pick your what measure you want to use, and this is coming live off the Cube system now, and we can save that into our system. And so again, the advantage here is that, you know, Cube has some extra metadata than you might have stored in your warehouse. Also very high performance because of the caching that Brian mentioned. So there's a lot of advantages in addition to providing that universality. And if we take a look at DBT semantic layer, the experience here is just slightly different. And the reason is because there's a higher level of metadata provided by the DBT semantic layer that we can tap into. So in this case, the metrics that are defined directly in DBT appear here. And of course, all of the metadata is coming back directly from the DBT semantic layer as well. So in this case, we can select any number of metrics of interest and simply add them into our catalog. So in this case, the metrics are querying the semantic layers first, which are then querying the data warehouses beneath them. So that's how you get the consistency on the definition and the semantics. So both Cube and DBT are doing that. And then if you want to go direct to your warehouse, you can do that as well. All first-class citizens within our software. So that's basically the demo that I had to show. And what I'll do is switch back, if I can, to the slides. And let's see where I am with those. Oops. I get that. Where's that window? Sorry, wrong window. There we go. Yeah, switch back to the slides. And if you guys have any questions about that, just feel free to add them to the Q&A panel and we'll get to them at the end. One more thing to note, which I didn't show you in the demo, is data feeds. This is actually where PowerMetrics started. And I think data feeds are a particularly interesting way of you prototyping metrics. For example, you don't yet have any data in a warehouse, or you aren't yet using a semantic layer, or even if you are, you're not exactly sure what data you want to power your metrics. We allow you to connect to over 100 different cloud APIs directly. For example, Facebook ads, Shopify, HubSpot, any source of data that's of interest, as well as spreadsheets, REST APIs, things like CSV, XML, and JSON files. All of these things can power a metric. So if you're just trying to demonstrate, for example, to a data team what you'd like to represent as your data before they actually go through all the work, you can do that with these, prototype it, and then spend the time bringing that data into a warehouse or modeling metrics around those definitions in a semantic layer. So this is a great way to get started, another option for you that PowerMetrics also supports. Also note that you can combine semantic layer metrics, data warehouse metrics, or data feed metrics in calculations. So you can literally take data from any source and create calculated metrics from any of these strategies simultaneously, which is pretty cool as well. So to recap, we went through today how metrics really bridge the gap between data teams and business users. Some really good background provided both by Roxy and Brian on the power of semantic layers in providing universal metric governance and metric consistency. We saw a little bit through the demo of how PowerMetrics enables data teams to both connect with their data stack, whether that's a feed through a warehouse, or if that's in a semantic layer, and how business users can easily interact and consume the objects, the metrics inside their metric catalog. We talked a little bit about that hybrid approach. So the data, your single source of truth, wherever that is, we can connect to it and we can visualize that data for you in a consistent way. And finally, thank you again, Adam, for your insight around this. Having a lead implementation partner like DataTier to support you on your metrics journey is really important. If you have questions, if you don't yet have a data team, if you need help cleaning your data, if you have questions around what strategy you should take, whether it's a warehouse or a semantic layer, DataTier is definitely here to help. So really appreciate the support from all of you today on the webinar. Just a couple of quick announcements, and then we can move to the Q&A. As Roxy eloquently mentioned, we do have another webinar next week. It's an exciting month for us here at Klipfolio. Next week, June 25th, we're actually launching PowerMetrics AI, which is not only able to take advantage of all the metrics coming from the semantic layers, but also from warehouses and feeds as well. So definitely join us for that. Some really exciting stuff we'll be able to demo there. If you're interested in any of the background around these new integrations, we have some blog posts you can read, as well as some documentation and some articles as well on our Metrics Stack newsletter, which really sort of shape up the opportunity and describe the strategy here as well. And of course, for any partners with us today, if you're interested in joining our partner program, there's a link to that as well at the bottom. So at this point, I guess we'll open it up to Q&A. I'm not sure if there's any questions, but I'll just take a look. And of course, if you want to address a question, any of us, just let us know. And if you want to contact us after the webinar, you can do so via our email addresses, or you can also click the link on the slide if you want to directly get in touch with Klipfolio support if you have a specific question or you'd like to see a demo or something like that.
Thanks, David. This has been great. I'm going to raise one of the questions that came in because I think it's applicable to everyone. And the question was, are metrics supposed to replace reports and dashboards entirely, or can they be part of a reporting or dashboarding strategy? And I thought that was a philosophically interesting question. Now it was answered in the Q&A section, but I thought I'd open it up to the panelists as well. So are metrics supposed to replace dashboards and reports, or are they part of a strategy? So I'll open it up to Roxy, Adam, or Brian, any one of you to take that first.
I can take it.
Sure. Go ahead,
Others
Adam.
may have input on there. Yeah, I think I want to answer this. There's another question. The questions all seem to be around do metrics fit? Like I get the idea of a warehouse. I get the idea of a report. Where do metrics? And the best example I have is the conversation. Somebody needs to make a decision or they have a question they need answered. They know it's probably in the data somewhere. So they'll ask someone, I need to answer this question. Where can I get this? The response is usually, well, I think we have a report that might answer that, or let me build you a report. Well, that's not good either. Now I have to wait a week just to get an answer to my question. So not everything requires a dashboard or requires a report. And so one benefit, I think, of having metrics as a central concept here is if you're already in the habit of conversing around metrics and you say, well, that's answered by metric XYZ. First of all, everybody knows that's a concrete thing. It's not some report somewhere that I have to understand. And if there's a consistent interface and I know where to go, then whether I'm a very non-technical business user who just wants to see the metric and wants to see the trend around it and just give me the number, that's all I need. I don't need a dashboard. Now you've got a way to do that. And then on the other end of the spectrum, there may be more of a power user of, I want to see the metric, but I do want to do some kind of lightweight directional exploration around it. Just give me some knobs I can do. Give me some filters, give me some groupings, just some basics. Again, like if you're starting with just the metric, there's not a lot of clutter around a big report with a lot of visuals or a big dashboard with a lot of bells and whistles. It really kind of gets to the heart of the answer. So there's a use case directly for, I just want to see my metric, in addition to all it could feed reports, it could feed data apps and the kind of things that David started with.
Brian or Roxy, anything to add on sort of the metric only or metric as part of the bigger strategy?
I think that was, oh, go ahead, Brian.
I was going to say, I think, working on a semantic layer is tempting to say, hey, metrics are everything, but I don't think they are. I mean, I think that they're part of a well-rounded strategy, like what Adam was saying. And, what I think is interesting about metrics for this conversation about exposing analytics to more business users is it really solves a problem that I saw kind of early in my career doing a lot of BI work where, presenting a enterprise BI tool to most users is just like a giant blank page that is very confusing and is very easy to get to the wrong number. So I think, this metrics approach of, looking at a metric or a metric store or a catalog of metrics and then being able to drill into a specific metric and then get like the relevant dimensions that make sense attached to it in a time grain. that's a really great approach to making organizations more sort of data driven in a way that's manageable.
Okay, awesome. Let me open up one other question as well, and there's actually another question that just came in as well. So the question is specifically for PowerMetrics, but I actually want to open it up a little bit. So the question is, who would the user be of PowerMetrics? But let's sort of broaden that. Who would the user be of any end user application, analytics tool? And what are metrics doing to sort of make it easier? So what are the things that are up and coming? And I think we did touch on some of them, but what are sort of the up and coming trends that metrics are really enabling that unlock this ability for self-serve finally to be something that we've all been working on for the past 30 years. So what are the trends that metrics are enabling that make it so much easier for end users? Who wants to take this one first? Adam, you go.
I'll give one example, Alan, that comes to mind. A lot of our customers are trying to monetize their data by sharing data or sharing insights or exposing dashboards or data applications to their customers. And what we found is as soon as our clients want to do that, the bar is like a lot higher than internal analytics. That if the data is not right, if the data is not timely, if it's not good, if it's not consistent, any of those problems, the end customer is going to notice. And that's kind of like egg on the face of the product person. And so as these capabilities and these desires to like expose this data out to end customers becomes more and more prevalent in a product strategy, the idea of getting it right is a lot more important. And so when you separate out the presentation layer, the dashboard or the report that's being shown to the user from the logic of the calculation of the metric itself, it's a lot easier to manage and it's a lot easier to get right. And you don't have so many of these problems of dashboard A doesn't agree with dashboard B, or I don't quite understand how this is calculated. All of that complex logic is put in one place where it's more manageable. So I think that unlocks and kind of de-risks a lot of those if you've got a product strategy around monetizing your data.
It feels a lot like the software development best practices kind of thing moving to data, right? Which is sort of why DBT was born in the first place. And quite frankly, why Cube is a very developer-centric platform in this regard, right? Is that separation of the presentation and the logic is really key. And reusing that logic across all the applications you have is really key. And I think another thought, just to feed off of what Brian was saying earlier, what I love about metrics is you can make new metrics out of those metrics, right? So like the whole idea is making new calculations, combining metrics in different ways. You may think you have a library that you can use, but the nice thing is by using them, you're making more. And those things also have definitions you can share. So it's pretty powerful to enable a variety of applications, be it custom data apps, BI dashboards, or any other thing you can think of, including AI, right? So very cool.
I'll add another one to that mix as well. One of the things that I think is fundamental in end user success is this concept of trust. And it's something that I've seen the semantic layers do quite well, especially, this idea of lineage. So, if you go into a meeting and you say, well, what was the revenue? A very quick follow-on answer is going to be, or question is going to be, well, where did you get that data? Oh, and who was responsible for building it? And what is the definition? So this idea of lineage, exposing the calculation, exposing the owners, the data owners of these things. So this whole data quality pipeline actually has a huge amount to do and a huge amount of overlap, I think, with helping end users, business end users, trust what they're looking at and finding the right metrics. So I'm super excited that, this whole metric first strategy really is really meant, in my opinion, to make business end users more successful and more trusting of the data.
Yeah, the 2 cents from an engineering perspective. I do like the post that Adam did yesterday talking about data engineering practices lagging behind software engineering practices for quite a while in terms of automation, continuous integration, quality testing, all of that. as software engineer myself, one of the things we love most is abstractions. Everything needs to be abstract and interoperable. So metrics is really this nice abstraction concept where you can put your business logic, your data hidden behind that, and make that an interoperable, deployable object that can interact with any other systems you have. So, as the data stack matures, you keep adding more and more of these abstraction layers to make your life easier and make working with different apps and different levels of stack much easier. So I think, to me, metrics as an abstraction and the object that we can deploy is sort of a natural progression that goes from columns, rows to semantic models, eventually to metrics. As we're kind of getting more mature in the industry.
Okay, I've got one last question here, and this is for David. And the question is, what are the next PowerMetric priorities? Will it be to improve data viz customization? And the question goes on to say, I feel like all viz tools that support DBT semantic layer integrations are not as robust like Looker, Power BI, except for Tableau. So I don't know, those are almost fighting words, but David, if you can sort of get into that, and maybe the question should be, what should our priorities be? Maybe we should run another poll, but
Yeah,
David, I'll let you
seriously.
answer the priorities.
Well, I love the input. Like from our perspective, we look at our priorities. We're listening a ton to what our customers are asking for and what we're seeing in the market. But we sort of prioritize things along three lines, right? So first and foremost, we want the richest metric catalog out there. So we're investing a lot in features that really help people navigate their metrics, right? So we're, for example, going to be adding a whole tagging infrastructure and a lot of other sort of value-added items around that metric catalog. We already have a ton of features there, but trying to make it, the best in the industry. The second is really an investment around data teams. And as you can see, enabling warehouses, semantic layers, this is really key to embracing that analytics stack. But we're also doing a lot of investment around things like embedding, right? Making sure that you can access metrics in a headless fashion from wherever you want, not just within PowerMetrics, and also through AI, which we'll be announcing next week, right? So we have a lot of innovation coming on the sort of headless consumption of metrics. And then the final piece, we continue to invest very heavily in trying to make it more accessible for business users, right? So, we have our Metric HQ, a nice way to learn about metrics, but how do we extend some of those principles inside the product? How do we make it easier for you to find the metrics you need? And how can you then signal to your data team what metrics you need so they can fulfill it with the data that's clean? So a lot of investment coming in those three areas. But if you have ideas, we're all ears. In fact, we'd love you to all check out our new integrations and let us know what you think, right? Because that feedback really is important and it helps us signal where we have gaps and where we need to keep investing. So hopefully that
So
answers.
love to know, for this person, I'd also love to know if there's any feedback around the integrations that you noted here for the semantic layer. And also what you like about the Tableau integration. All that is very useful for us.
Yeah, well,
all that is very useful
too.
for us to have.
I'm curious too. And actually, DBT has a Tableau integration. I think Cube does. We're building a strategy to allow us to coexist really nicely with enterprise BI, including Tableau. So, if you guys have features you're looking for that you really need or you're really excited about, let us know, and we'll definitely optimize around that. So, thanks for the question.
David, I think that was all the questions that we had here.
Okay. Well, 9 minutes to spare, but we generally thank all of you for joining and taking the time today to learn from us. And as I mentioned, any questions you have or anything we can do to help, our email addresses are included there as well. So just reach out at any time. And yep, thanks for joining. Have a great day, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Roxy, Adam, Brian.
Thank you
That's
all.
great.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
thank
Thanks,
you,
everyone.
guys.
Hey, thanks for having us. Yeah, cheers.